You're sitting in your family doctor's office and they ask you how you've been feeling lately. Your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty, and you've barely slept in weeks. But what comes out of your mouth? Oh, I'm fine, just a little tired. Maybe you're drowning at work, anxiety climbing higher each day, but when your boss asks if you can handle another project, you smile and say, hey, absolutely, no problem. Or perhaps you're at dinner with friends who are sharing their struggles, and inside you're screaming because you can barely get out of bed most mornings, but you find yourself nodding along saying, everything's great on my end. We've all been there. That moment when honesty feels too risky, too vulnerable, too much. When it seems easier to keep the peace than to speak the truth about what's happening inside our minds. I was talking to my friend the other day and she said something that stopped me in my tracks completely. She'd just come back from a doctor's appointment where she'd finally been honest about her depression, something she'd been hiding for months. You know what's funny, she said? I broke my ankle last year and I had no problem telling everyone I needed help, asking for rides to appointments, using crutches at work. But with depression, I spent 6 months pretending I was fine while falling apart inside. It got me thinking about the strange double standard we have when it comes to our minds versus our bodies. If you showed up to work with a visible cast, no one would question your need for accommodations. If you took 2 sick days for the flu, no one would suggest that you're being dramatic. But mention that you're struggling with anxiety or depression, and suddenly there's this uncomfortable silence, this shift in the conversation, this unspoken message that maybe you should just try harder to be okay. I've been wrestling with why we struggle so much to advocate for our mental health needs. Part of it is cultural. Let's be honest, we Canadians are pretty good at the whole "I'm fine" routine, even when we're definitely not fine. Part of it is systemic. Try getting a therapy appointment through our healthcare system and you'll quickly discover that mental health resources aren't exactly abundant. But I think there's something deeper happening here, something that goes right to the heart of how we see ourselves and our worth. Many of us learn that love comes with conditions attached. Be strong, be capable, have it all together, don't be a burden, don't make a fuss. When we're struggling mentally, it can feel like we're failing at the most basic human requirement, being okay. And if we're not okay, well, maybe we just don't deserve help. Maybe we should just be grateful for what we have. Maybe someone else needs support more than we do. But what if we've got this whole thing backwards? What if our worth isn't tied to our mental wellness? What if asking for help isn't weakness but wisdom? What if speaking up about our struggles isn't just about our own healing, but about creating space for others to breathe too? Here's what I know. Statistics Canada tells us that nearly 1 in 4 Canadians will experience a mental health issue in any given year. That means in your office, your friend group, your family dinner table, you're surrounded by people who are struggling. But if everyone's wearing their "I'm fine" mask, how would any of us know that we're not alone in this fight? The cost of our collective silence is staggering. When we don't advocate for our mental health, we don't just hurt ourselves, we keep broken systems broken. We maintain cultures that shame struggle, that we rob people who love us of the chance to show up. And we miss opportunities to be part of changing how our world talks about and treats mental health. There's a story that keeps coming back to me when I think about finding our voice in impossible circumstances. It's about a young woman who had every reason to stay quiet and safe. She was living in comfort, she had security, she had protection. Speaking up could have cost her everything, literally her life. But sometimes staying silent is the most dangerous choice we can make. We'll be right back.
Hello, good to see you today here at the Lenses of Love set. I love to watch Sam's message and learn from him how to see God and His Word through the lenses of love. Perhaps you would like to learn more about other questions of life. For example, why am I here? Is there a God? Why is there so much evil and suffering? And why are there so many different religions, and which one is true? Is the Bible fact or fiction? Who is Jesus of Nazareth? Was he truly God as Christians say he is? Why did Jesus come to earth to die? And how does his death offer us salvation? What happens when I die? Is there really a heaven or a hell? These questions and others we answer on our online Bible study platform at hopestudy.ca. There, you will find answers to these and other crucial life questions. We would love to hear from you. Please email us at hopestudy@hopetv.ca. And remember, there is hope and answers to life's biggest questions in the Word of God.
Queen Esther's world was about to explode. A genocidal decree had been issued against her people. All Jewish people in the Persian Empire were marked for death. And Esther, she was hiding in plain sight, her Jewish identity concealed so that she could sit on a throne that might be her only hope of survival. Her cousin Mordecai came to her with words that still give me chills. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this? For such a time as this. I can't get those words out of my head when I think about mental health advocacy. Because maybe, just maybe, your willingness to speak honestly about your anxiety isn't just about getting help. Maybe it's about giving your coworker permission to finally call that therapist. Maybe your decision to take a mental health day isn't just about your recovery. Maybe it's about normalizing mental health care in your workplace. Maybe your openness about antidepressants isn't just about your healing. Maybe it's about reducing stigma for everyone who comes after you. But let's be real about what made Esther's situation terrifying. In her world, approaching the king uninvited was potentially a death sentence. The risk was real, immediate, and catastrophic, and yet Mordecai helped her see that the risk of silence might be even deadlier than the risk of speaking up. I think about this when I hear people say that they can't talk about their mental health because of the potential consequences. What if my boss thinks I'm unreliable? What if my family thinks I'm being dramatic? What if people see me differently? These fears aren't irrational. Mental health stigma is real, and unfortunately, some people still carry outdated attitudes about psychological struggles. But here's what I've learned from watching people find their voice about mental health. The consequences of speaking up are far less severe than we imagine, while the consequences of staying silent are often far more devastating than we realized. I remember talking to someone who had spent 2 years hiding panic attacks at work, ducking into bathroom stalls and supply closets when anxiety hit. She was convinced that admitting her struggles would end her career. When she finally told her manager what was happening, not because she was brave, but because she was desperate, her manager's response shocked her. "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that you were dealing with that. My daughter has anxiety too. Let's figure out a way to support the both of you." That's the thing about mental health advocacy. It often reveals that we're not nearly as alone as we thought we were. Esther didn't approach the king impulsively. She prepared, she fasted, she prayed, she gathered her courage, she developed a strategy. She was honest about the gravity of the situation while being respectful of the king's position and power. She understood that advocacy isn't just about speaking truth, it's about speaking truth in ways others can actually hear and respond to. And this is crucial for mental health conversations. Sometimes we need to educate before we advocate. Sometimes we need to build trust before we can be vulnerable. Sometimes we need to help people understand what mental health struggles actually look like before they can support us effectively. I think about the parent who told me, I spent months trying to get my mom to understand my depression. She kept saying things like, just think positive thoughts or count your blessings. I finally sat her down and said, Mom, when you had pneumonia, did positive thinking cure your lungs? This is an illness too, and I need medical treatment, not a pep talk. That conversation changed everything in their relationship. Getting specific about what we're experiencing is part of effective advocacy. Instead of saying, I'm stressed, we might say, I've been having panic attacks 3 times a week, I'm not sleeping, I think I need professional help. Instead of, I'm struggling, we could say, I'm dealing with depression and it's affecting my ability to concentrate at work. I'd like to explore what accommodations might help. Vague descriptions often lead to vague responses. Specific information helps healthcare providers, employers, and support people understand what we actually need. But here's something I've noticed about Esther's approach that really strikes me. She understood that her advocacy wasn't just about her own survival. Her willingness to speak up changed the entire political landscape for her people. Laws were rewritten, power structures were challenged, future generations benefited from her courage. Mental health advocacy works the same way. When we speak up about our struggles, we're not just helping others, or we're not just helping ourselves rather, we're contributing to cultural change. Every person who talks openly about therapy makes it a little more normal for others to seek help. Every workplace conversation about mental health accommodation makes it easier for the next person to ask for what they need. Every honest discussion about medication or depression or anxiety chips away at the shame that keeps many people suffering alone. A young professional told me something recently. She said, I never would have considered therapy if I hadn't heard my team lead mention casually that she had a therapy appointment after work. It made me realize that successful, competent people go to therapy too. It's not just for people who are broken. When we prioritize our psychological well-being, we model healthy behavior for everyone around us. When we set boundaries to protect our mental health, we give others permission to do the same. When we seek professional help for emotional struggles, we normalize the idea that psychological pain deserves the same attention and care as physical pain. I've watched this play out in families, workplaces, friend groups. One person starts being honest about their mental health and suddenly 3 other people feel safe enough to seek help. One friend admits that they're on antidepressants and it opens up conversations that people have been avoiding for years. One colleague starts taking mental health days and it changes the culture around the wellness of the entire team. But let's acknowledge what many of us are really wrestling with when it comes to mental health advocacy. Deeply held beliefs about strength, independence, and self-reliance. Many of us absorbed messages early in life that needing help is weakness, that we should handle our problems alone, that asking for support is burdensome to others. Here's what I want you to consider. If a close friend came to you struggling with anxiety or depression, would you think that they were weak for seeking help? Would you be annoyed by their honesty about their struggles? Would you respect them less for prioritizing their mental health? Of course not. You'd probably be honored that they trusted you enough to be vulnerable, and you want to help support them however you could. The compassion we naturally extend to others struggling with mental health is the same compassion we deserve to receive and to give ourselves. But somehow we hold ourselves to impossible standards while offering grace to everyone else. I was talking to someone recently who said, I spent years thinking I should be able to handle my depression alone because I'm a strong person. It took me way too long to realize that strong people seek help when they need it. Weak people suffer in silence and pretend everything's fine. That hit me hard because it's so true. Advocacy isn't about weakness, it's about wisdom. It's about recognizing that some problems require professional expertise, community support, and resources beyond what we can provide for ourselves. Mental health advocacy also means becoming educated about our rights and resources. In Canada, both employers and educational institutions are legally required to provide reasonable accommodations for mental health conditions. But here's the catch: we usually have to ask for them, and we need to know what's available before we can advocate effectively. Workplace accommodations might include flexible work hours, the ability to work from home occasionally, regular breaks, modified deadlines during mental health crises, access to employee assistance programs, or adjustments to workspace environments. Educational accommodations could involve extended time for exams, deadline extensions, reduced course loads or during difficult periods, or quiet spaces for managing anxiety. But preparation also means understanding the mental health landscape we're navigating. Our Canadian healthcare system, while providing universal coverage, has significant gaps when it comes to mental health services. Wait times for publicly funded therapy can stretch for months. Many effective treatments aren't covered by provincial health plans. The integration between family doctors and mental health specialists is often poor, leaving patients to navigate complex referral systems on their own. This reality means that effective self-advocacy requires becoming somewhat of an expert on available resources. You might need to know that your employee assistance programs offers 8 free counseling sessions per year, for example. You might need to research whether your provincial health plan covers psychological services versus psychiatric services. You might need to understand the difference between a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker, and a counselor, and which type of professional help is best suited to help your specific concerns. The advocacy process becomes even more complex when you consider the intersections of mental health with other aspects of identity. A young person of color dealing with anxiety might need to find a therapist who understands the unique stressors of racism and discrimination. Indigenous Canadians often require culturally appropriate mental health services that incorporate traditional healing practices alongside Western approaches. The goal isn't to use mental health as an excuse to avoid responsibility, but to create conditions that allow us to meet our responsibilities while maintaining our well-being. Just like we wouldn't expect someone with a broken leg to climb stairs without assistance, we shouldn't expect ourselves to maintain normal productivity during mental health crises without appropriate support.
Every day, Hope Channel Canada is transforming lives with health, love, and salvation. Together, we are creating a ripple effect that spreads hope across the nation. Now we invite you to become an agent of hope in Canada. Whether it's through prayer, volunteering, or your financial support, your involvement creates a larger wave of change. Like puzzle pieces coming together, every small act contributes to a bigger picture of hope. So visit agentsofhope.ca or call 1-855-4-HOPE-TV to join the movement. Thank you for sharing hope with us.
Finding our voice about mental health also means learning to ask for specific types of support rather than hoping others will magically figure out what we need. I've learned that some people are amazing listeners but terrible problem solvers. Others are wonderful at practical help but struggle with emotional support. Some friends are perfect for distractions and fun, while others are better for deep, meaningful conversations. When we can get specific about what we need, I'm dealing with depression and I think it would help if we could check in with each other weekly, or I've been having panic attacks and I need someone who understands if I have to leave social events, that I have to leave social events early sometimes. We make it easier for others to support us effectively. This kind of, being specific also applies to professional relationships. Instead of telling our doctor we're stressed, we can describe specific symptoms: difficulty sleeping, changes in appetite, trouble concentrating, physical tension, mood changes. Instead of telling our boss we're struggling, we can identify specific accommodations that would help: flexible start times, the ability to take breaks when needed, or temporary adjustment to our workload. But perhaps the most crucial aspect of mental health advocacy is recognizing that you are the expert on your own experience. Other people, even well-meaning healthcare providers, family members, or friends, might have opinions about what you're going through or what you should do about it. But you are the one living in your body, experiencing your thoughts, dealing with your symptoms day to day. This doesn't mean that we should ignore professional advice or dismiss input from people who care about us, but it does mean trusting our instincts when something doesn't feel right, speaking up when treatments aren't working, and insisting on being heard when our concerns are being dismissed. I've talked to too many people who ignored their gut feelings about their mental health because someone else told them that they were overreacting or that their symptoms weren't that serious. One person told me, "I saw 3 different doctors before one took my anxiety seriously. The first 2 kept suggesting that I needed more exercise and better sleep habits. I knew something deeper was wrong, but I started doubting myself because they were the experts. I wish I trusted my instincts sooner and advocated more strongly for the care that I needed." Friends, mental health advocacy is also about persistence. Sometimes the first healthcare provider you see won't take your concerns seriously. Sometimes your initial request for workplace accommodations will be denied. Sometimes family members won't understand your needs immediately. This doesn't mean you should just give up. It means you should keep advocating, seek second opinions, escalate your requests, and find people who will listen and support you. The process of finding your voice about mental health is rarely linear. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, times when it feels easy to just retract into silence or retreat. But each time you speak up, even imperfectly, you build your advocacy muscles and create possibilities for healing and connection that wouldn't exist otherwise. What I find particularly powerful about Esther's story is that she didn't let her fear paralyze her into inaction. She acknowledged the terror. She felt the weight of the risk, but chose courage anyway. She understood that some moments demand that we rise above our comfort zones because the stakes are too high for silence. Esther could have convinced herself that someone else will speak up, that her voice wouldn't make a difference, that the risk was too great. She could have stayed comfortable in her palace chambers, hoping the crisis would resolve itself without her involvement. But she recognized that she was positioned for such a time as this, not just to save her own life, but to change the course of history for her entire people. You, friend, are positioned for such a time as this, too. Right here, right now, in your workplace, in your family, in your community, you have the opportunity to change how we talk about and treat mental health. Maybe not for an entire nation like Esther, but for the people around you who are watching to see if it is safe to be honest about their struggles. I can't help but think about the conversations I've had with people who finally found their voice about mental health. There's this moment when they realize that speaking up didn't destroy their relationships, it deepened them. That being honest about their struggles didn't make people think less of them, it made people trust them more. That asking for help didn't prove that they were weak, it demonstrated their wisdom and courage. When you advocate for your mental health, when you speak honestly about your needs, when you seek professional help, when you set boundaries that protect your well-being, when you ask for accommodations that help you thrive, you're creating change that extends far beyond your individual situation. The silence that once seemed safer then speaking up is actually more dangerous than we realized. When we stay quiet about mental health struggles, we don't protect ourselves, we isolate ourselves. We don't avoid judgment, we internalize judgment. We don't maintain strength, we exhaust ourselves trying to appear strong while suffering alone. But when we find our voice, when we speak truth about our mental health needs, when we advocate for ourselves with wisdom and courage, we discover something beautiful. Most people want to support us, they just didn't know how. Most workplaces want to accommodate mental health needs, they just needed guidance. Most friends and family members want to help, they just needed permission to care. Your mental health advocacy isn't selfish, it's sacred. It honors the life you've been given and protects your ability to contribute meaningfully to the world around you. It models healthy behavior for the next generation and creates cultures where psychological wellness is valued alongside physical health. The journey of mental health advocacy is often messy, non-linear, and requires tremendous courage. Some days you'll feel confident speaking up for your needs. Other days the old patterns of silence and self-doubt will creep back in. This is normal and expected. Advocacy isn't about being perfect, it's about being persistent. It's about showing up for yourself again and again, even when it feels scary or uncomfortable. I want you to remember that every small act of self-advocacy matters. Scheduling that therapy appointment you've been putting off, having an honest conversation with your boss about your workload, setting a boundary with a family member who dismisses your mental health concerns, researching treatment options for your anxiety, taking a mental health day when you need it. These aren't insignificant gestures. They're revolutionary acts of self-care in a world that often demands we suffer in silence. Behind every statistic is a story, and behind every story is a person who deserves advocacy, attention, and care. Your story matters. Your struggle is valid. Your voice has power to create change. Finding your voice about mental health is both deeply personal and profoundly political. It's an act of self-love that becomes an act of social change. It's a choice to prioritize your well-being that gives others permission to prioritize theirs too. It's a declaration that mental health is not a luxury for the privileged few, but a fundamental right for every human being. So speak up, seek help, and set boundaries. Ask for those accommodations. Practice the conversations that feel scary. Write down the symptoms you've been minimizing. Research the resources available to you. Trust your instincts about what you need. Be specific about the support that would help you most. And remember that advocacy is a skill that develops over time. You don't have to be perfect at it from the beginning. Your voice was made for such a time as this. Your mental health deserves advocacy, attention, and care. And your willingness to speak truth about your struggles just might be the permission someone else needs to start working on their own healing journey. The world needs voices of vulnerability, advocates for authenticity, champions of comprehensive care through these lenses of love. Seeing mental health as sacred, advocacy as essential, and your voice as valuable, you become part of the change our world desperately needs.